This is a short story written by Roald Dahl and entitled The Sound Machine. Let's see what is in the story. It was a warm summer evening. Klausner walked into the garden at the back of his house. Suddenly, Dr. Scott, his family physician, came in. "So this is where you hide yourself in the evening," said Dr. Scott was very surprised, and now he was able to know where Mr. Klausner would like to spend his evening. "Hello, Dr. Scott." So Mr. Klausner greeted Dr. Scott, who was his family doctor. "How is that throat of yours been behaving?" So Dr. Scott had been treating Klausner's throat for a few days. So finally he asked Mr. Klausner about his throat. "It's all right, it's fine." "What's this, making a radio?" "No, just fooling around." "It's rather a frightening looking thing, isn't it?" "What's it really for? You have made me inquisitive." So Dr. Scott was really very curious to know what Klausner was trying to do. "All right, I'll tell you. The human ear can't hear everything. There are sounds that are so low pitched and high pitched. I want to listen to those sounds. I want to know where they come from and who or what is making the sounds. This machine is designed to pick up those sound waves and convert them to a scale of audible sounds. Are you going to try it tonight?" So Dr. Scott was very eager to know whether Klausner would really work out on his experiment. Yes, Dr. Scott was really confident about his experiment, and he replied that yes, he will surely do his work out this evening. Dr. Scott left, and Klausner carried his machine to the garden. Then he connected the earphones to the machine. It was an absolutely quiet evening. Through the earphones, he could hear a faint crackling and humming of the machine. So, since there was no noise, the Klausner was able to hear the crackling and humming sound of the machine. Suddenly, he heard a frightful, piercing shriek. He was very shocked to hear that shriek. Klausner looked around and saw Mrs. Saunders, his neighbor, taking a rose stem and snipping it up. "Mrs. Saunders, please cut another one quickly." So Klausner wanted to verify himself, and he asked Mrs. Saunders to cut another piece of stem. "Why, Mr. Klausner, what's the matter?" So Mrs. Saunders was very curious to know why Mr. Klausner wanted to have another piece of stem to be cut. Though a bit confused by Klausner's strange behavior, Mrs. Saunders took up the scissors and cut another rose stem. Again it came at the exact moment the rose stem was cut. So there was the piercing shriek that Mr. Klausner heard again as soon as the rose stem was cut. He tried to explain to her that he heard the cry of the rose plants when she cut the flowers. Mrs. Saunders was not convinced and she left. So Mrs. Saunders had a view that Klausner was a bit mad. The next day morning, Klausner carried his machine to a park. He struck the base of a tree with an axe. So Mr. Klausner, he took the machine to a park, and then he took an axe and gave a big blow to the trunk of the tree. The next day morning, when he struck with his axe to the base of a tree, what happened? At that very moment, he heard a harsh note, less enormous, low-pitched screaming sound. He was shocked to hear it. He hurried back to his house and phoned Dr. Scott and asked him to immediately attend his house. Dr. Scott, you must come immediately. So he called upon in a hurried tone and asked him to come to his house immediately. What's the matter? Are you ill? So Dr. Scott was very worried and he asked in return if Mr. Klausner was well or he was ill. No, I want you to hear something. I can't believe it. All right then, I'll come. So Dr. Scott agreed to visit his house. Klausner asked the doctor to put on the earphone and listen. He then struck the tree with the axe. Klausner asked the doctor and wanted the doctor to hear the sound of the shriek that would come when he would struck the trunk of the tree. The moment the axe cut into the wood, a large branch came cascading down and smashed the machine. So as soon as he gave a big blow to the trunk of the tree, a big branch that fell on the machine and it smashed it. The doctor and Klausner had a narrow escape. So Mr. Klausner was really not aware what was happening. He just wanted to see what his experiment resulted. Did you hear it? Now, Mr. Klausner was really worried and he asked Dr. Scott if he heard what he wanted him to hear. Hear what? So Dr. Scott was really shocked. He wanted to know what Mr. Klausner wanted him to hear. The cry when the axe struck. So Mr. Klausner clarified and said that I wanted you to hear the cry when I hit the tree trunk with my axe. Oh hell, I really don't know. I was more interested in saving my life. So Dr. Scott said that yes, he was not interested in hearing to the sound rather than escaping himself and saving his life from the falling branch. Okay, you stitch this up quickly. So Dr. Klausner was really hurt of giving a blow to the tree trunk, and the tree trunk had a scratch on it. So he wanted Dr. Scott to just stitch the tree trunk and heal it up. Don't be silly. I can't stitch through the wood. So Dr. Scott was really very surprised, and he said that it is not a thing to be stitched. So it is very impossible to stitch the tree trunk. Then paint the cut with iodine. Then he gave another option and said, put iodine on the cut part. All right, I'll paint it with iodine. So Dr. Scott agreed to this option that he will surely paint it with iodine. Yes, that will do nicely. You'll come and look at the wound again tomorrow? So he asked Dr. Scott to heal the cut of the tree with iodine, and he wanted him to come back tomorrow and again see to the cut if it is healed or not. Oh yes, of course. So Dr. Scott had to agree that yes, he will surely come and look into the wound. Klaus then nodded his head, and all at once he smiled. So he was very happy because the doctor agreed to do what he wanted him to do. The doctor went over to him and gently took him up by the arm, and he said, "Come on, we must go away from here quickly." Children, this is all about the story. Hope you liked it. Have a nice day.